Guys, I hate to beat a dead horse because it really does feel pretty dead at this point. But Richard Hart, otherwise known as Richard Schueler, his birth name, is just not a good person at all. And yet he was able to convince people to the tune of $1 billion to give them their money. And he created one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in crypto thus far as I'm concerned. Yet his big loyalist fans continue to support him to this day, and I just don't understand how they don't see at this point that they're in a cult, essentially. But this guy is a terrible human being. I've been saying it for years. I can just read people pretty well. And he was one of those people that every time he opened his mouth, my BS meter was just constantly going off. Like, no, everything that this guy is saying is just ridiculous. Like, he had self-help books, yet the guy is entirely overweight and just lazy, and he's trying to tell people how to live their lives. But what I want to talk about today is that apparently he is now listed on the EU's most wanted page. WhaleFud on Twitter posted this, and you can see that his crime is fraud, including that affecting the financial interests of the European communities within the meaning of the Convention of 26 July 1995 on the protection of European communities' financial interests. If you scroll down, it lists off some of his other crimes. For the purpose of avoiding tax, Schueler failed to observe a statutory duty pertaining to taxation that is of significance in the assessment of tax. Schueler failed to file business tax returns for the tax multiple years and also failed to complete information on his income on his pre-filled personal tax returns. Schueler received income from his business or income-generating activities that he should have declared to the tax administration for the purposes of tax assessment. The total amount of tax avoided is counted in hundreds of millions of euros, which is insane because I don't think that he actually made that much money. Don't get me wrong, he made a ton of money, but if you go back and watch some of my other videos about Hex, you'll know that a lot of it was wash trading that he was doing to make it appear like there was a lot more volume on Hex than there really was. He was taking the Ethereum that he was getting in from people purchasing Hex, and then he was going back on the market and market buying it as well, to make it appear like it was creating more volume and hype than it actually was. Apparently, he also assaulted a 16-year-old person and made their face bleed, and for that, he is also wanted. But Interpol also has him listed as being most wanted. So this guy, regardless of how you feel about taxation, we all hate taxation. I hate taxation just as much as anybody else. But at the end of the day, you're required to pay your taxes. If you live in a country that has an income tax or a business tax, and you own a business, guess what? You have to pay taxes on that business. If you're an individual making income, you got to pay taxes on that income. It sucks, but at the end of the day, that's the law of the land, and you got to abide by it if you want to live in that area. And this guy, just being who he is, thinks that he's above the law. This guy has some weird God complex to him that people just love to love. And I mean, it is very stereotypical for people like this that have such a big character to have such a big following as well. And they just believe everything that he says, which is truly unfortunate for them because all this guy did was take their money and create a clone of Ethereum that isn't even as good as Ethereum. He created a clone of Uniswap, which isn't even as good as Uniswap, and yet people still love him and admire him. I don't get it. I never will, but clearly this guy is not a good person. Here's an article talking about how he was suspected of tax evasion in Finland as well. This was dated back to September of this year. Here is an article talking about his collision with the SEC and how he's basically begging for them to dismiss the case, the court to dismiss the case that the SEC has filed against him for securities fraud. But the reality is, what he did was create a security. If you go back to the days of ICOs back in 2017 and 2018, the SEC was very clear that those were securities. If you basically do a token sale for a future product, that is a security. And they're very clear about that. They were clear about it then, they're clear about it now. Yet he tried to basically change what it was by putting a different name on it. He called it a sacrifice. And just because you slap a different name on something doesn't change the true aspect of what it is. So like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I definitely think that this was newsworthy. The guy is a terrible human being, and I hope he gets what's coming to him. All of those people that he affected with Hex and PulseChain definitely didn't deserve what they got. And so for that, I hope they find him. If you enjoy this type of content where I just break down some of the daily crypto news in a video segment, longer form video segment like this, then hit that like button, guys. If you didn't like it, then hit the dislike button. I'm sure there will be a lot of people in my comments as well that want to defend him, and that's totally fine. I can appreciate that. But I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. That's going to be it for this one, though. Capital Recon out.